name's Nick Gates and I'm a boat builder. In this series I'm going to show you the wonderful world of boats and how you can get afloat without it costing you a fortune. Also, we're going to be hitching a ride on some of these. But for now, back down to earth. The first job is to find a boat I can restore over the summer. Where is this thing then?
It's round here by the Land Rover somewhere.
Well, it's been sitting around a while.
Yeah, I think so.
My friend Ed has had a tip-off there's a suitable boat going for just a few £100 lying in the bushes in Chichester. Oh, very nice, isn't it?
Yes.
Hasn't been used for a while. Lots of cobwebs. 2, 3.
It's alright,
It's got an engine in, but he said the engine probably needs replacing it, so I don't know what's wrong with it.
Don't know whether I want to get in.
Plenty of last year's mud. Is that a floorboard? That's the seat. That is the thwart. That should be living in there somewhere. Certainly needs that sorting out. I think these are all screwed down.
Yeah.
Never mind. Let's have a look at the engine. And get that little throttle linkage off. Oh, nice.
A bit seized.
Absolutely solid. And I think looking at the tide line at the front, it's been under quite a few times. I don't think it's worth spending any time on it at all. So we can see the forest for the trees. It's lost all its longitudinal stiffness. Oh, it's just that engine ripping out and those beds and some nice long engine beds putting in. Really stiffen the whole thing up. She's really dropped away from her shape.
Yeah, she's sagging quite a lot because the bench is missing, isn't she?
Sagging big time, yeah. You actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 broken timbers. And we've got a broken floor there. And a split plank. Rotten timber there. And that's just that side. Joking. Can we find another one? Tea. Now, part of looking for a boat to restore is knowing when to say no. There are hundreds of old wooden boats lying around in much better condition than this, for not a lot more money. So the search goes on. Now, before buying a sailing boat, I think it's essential that you understand the basics. And the best way to learn them is by joining a club. We popped over to Burnham on Crouch and it's Friday evening, and over there in the sailing club there's lots of families and their kids getting down here and sailing in Optimists. They're as young as 5 and 6 years old and they're out there sailing like they've been doing it all their lives. Now, I didn't start sailing in one of these, but I wish I'd had one.
People still seem to think sailing is the sort of reserve of you being a bit rich, whereupon with Burnham Sailing Club it's not that, it's just let's get kids afloat, you know?
So if one of the kids says, Mum, Dad, Mum, I really want an Optimist now, what's it going to cost them to get into it and buy their own boat?
Well, we usually deter them from buying one initially, until they've actually had a season of using the club boats. But if you actually want to sort of then go the full hog, you can pick up a second-hand Optimist for around £350, £400.
So Buster, if you're not a kid and you may be a bit of a grown-up kid, say 30-something, what's the way then? What's the route to getting afloat?
Well, I would still say that the best way is to still get involved in the sailing club. And there are a lot of sailing clubs where you can come down and you can say, well, I've not got any experience, but I'm keen and willing, and you'll find that we'd take you out on the launch and get you involved that way so you get used to being afloat. And we can line them up with various people in the club who've got sailing boats, so you can go out, try different sailing boats, and then they can progress on to perhaps picking up an old second-hand boat and going from there. Some people find straight away they actually want something that's a bit, got a bit of speed, a bit of performance, and others just quite happy to go in something a little bit more sedate and just go cruising, picnicking and that sort of thing.
Here's another one of the dinghies. It's a West White scow. She's 50 years old, absolutely gorgeous. And the owner has kindly said I can take her for a spin. So I'm off. Come on, dog. More like it. Being overtaken by an optimist. It's only about 6. And sailing, it's so easy once you get the hang of it. I mean, the basic controls are the tiller next to the rudder, which is here. If you pull it towards you, it's going to go over here. If you push it away from us, we go over there. So it's a bit back to front, but you get the hang of it. And then one control for the sail, which comes down to here. This is the main sheet. Pull the sail in till it stops flapping. Plus a bit, and off you go. If you want to slow down, let it out, and we stop, and that's it. Now when we want to change direction, we're heading down here, we're going to put a tack in, so the wind's going to come across the front of the boat. We're going to head off 90 degrees that way. You ready, dog? Pepper? I'm going to tack. You ready? Ready about. Mustn't bark. Oops. Lee-ho. Because the winds are light, I can stay sitting on this side. But normally you'd change sides so you could see upwind and see where you're going. Got one other control, and that's the centreboard. Now on this boat, she's 50 years old, so she's got the traditional heavy galvanised iron centre plate, which is connected to this handle here. So if we pull it right up, the boat's now not sailing as well, she's going sideways through the water. As soon as we drop it, she gets a grip, and we're sailing much closer to the wind and not making so much leeway. This big centreboard in the water literally stops the boat being pushed sideways. When we get to shallower water, we can have it half up and half down, and that does nearly as good a job. For me, this is absolutely perfect. I can't think of any better way to spend a couple of hours on a Friday evening. Not only am I out sailing in the lovely East Coast, but I'm sat in this scow which was built 50 years ago, surrounded by quality craftsmanship, lovely varnish work. I've got my dog. What more do I want, really? One of the great things about a club like this is once you've finished out there, you can pop in the clubhouse for a pint. But of course it won't always be plain sailing. Anyway, back in the workshop, I've got a repair to do on a dinghy. It's the Mirror Dinghy. It was designed about 1950 and marketed by the Mirror newspaper. They built thousands and thousands all over the world, and it was designed and marketed to get people afloat and get people going. This particular boat's had a bit of a prang. What I've done so far is replace this piece here, a new rubbing straight, a new piece at the front, piece down here, and the next job is to put a little diagonal strut in here. We've done a dry fit and it's looking quite good. It's nice and flat and it's ready to accept a new piece of ply to replace this old one, which got broken when it bashed into another boat. We're going to use a little drop of this glue, which is lovely fast setting polyurethane glue. For a little job like this, it's really quick, there's no mixing, straight out the can, straight onto the job. It foams slightly and gives you this sort of consistency, which is very, very easy to clean up after it's gone off. It's very strong, but you do need high clamping pressures and nice close-fitting joints. Finish that off with the manual screwdriver, just in case we overdo things. Right, we're going to use this other one as a pattern, which is going to go, so this one will end up being over there. So we're going to get a rough shape, draw around it underneath. Right, need a bit more there, bit of artistic license. what we've got to do is make sure that this stays completely flat for the ply. So we use the back of the saw, which is a nice straight edge, just to check that we're not going too far away from what we want to end up with. Right, all we've got to do now, we've got to make it look the same as this. So we've got to put a bevel edge on here to match the other one. Fair this curve off a little bit to get rid of that flat spot. Trim the front up and a bit of a bevel on there, and then we can glue it and pin it. When you're planing ply, you need a really sharp plane. It's very hard, and otherwise it will splinter because you're planing a lot of end grain. I'll leave that one there. So, right, what we're going to do is clean up this inside face here. But with a normal block plane, you see you can't. The blade just won't cut. Where's my spoke shave? This is a spoke shave, a very small base, so it's very good for doing the insides of curves and so on. A lot of people think that this is consigned to history books with modern grinders and power files and all that sort of stuff, but they're great. We're going to put the bevel on this edge, which is the bit we see. Finish off with a bit of sandpaper. Make it nice and soft for the fingers when you're pulling the boat out of the water. Right, how does that look? I think that'll do. Now this one's held on with pins, so we're going to glue and pin this one as well. Now, if like me you've lost half your drill bits, when it comes to smaller sizes you can just use a little brass panel pin and use that as a drill bit instead. So just cut the head off, stick it in your drill, and you'll find it will drill just the right size hole. Hooray! Got to get it in just the right position this time. So we'll make sure it doesn't get away with a cramp. Once it's on there, it's on for good. Got some pins. These are nice little brass panel pins, and when you buy them, make sure you buy ones which are solid brass and not just brass coated, because the brass coated ones won't last 5 minutes and you'll have rust oozing out of your boat. So it's nailed on now, and you can see the glue foaming out. It's quite a nice feature because any little tiny voids you might have left get filled with the foam, and that stops water going in and air and so on, which can eventually lead to rot. The glue should take about half an hour to set, so I'll come back later to finish it off. My quest for a suitable boat to restore has led me to this 1930s racing dinghy known as a Sharpie, and the first signs are pretty good. I say, Ratsy and Lapthorn sails. Look at that. By appointment to Her Majesty the Queen. Top-notch stuff. These are Terraline sails, which obviously when the Sharpies were first built in the 1930s and right up to the 1950s they used cotton sails. But cotton rots quite easily, these are much more durable. That's the end that wears, it flaps in the wind. Oh, that's very good, quite usable. Seeing what we've got in the bilges. It's all screwed down. We'll have to get all these floorboards out so we can get to the skin of the boat. Oh look, it's got the outboard brackets on the rudder. It's very novel. such a great shape, very long, narrow. Most of this should clean up quite well. There's a few nasties we need to get rid of. Very interesting, all the deck's made out of lots of little bits. It's not really quite normal. I don't know if it was made out of their old dining room table. Because the timber's dried out, each plank is cupped. It would be much easier just to whip this piece of timber off and put a new piece on than it would be to mess around with that. The whole hull's in quite good shape, but it has been covered in some cases by oodles of epoxy. See, this area here is really thick with it. It's very solid, but it might hold a load of horrors underneath. It's had some sort of flexible sealant in the seams, which is good. And luckily there's no epoxy being put in. That mast looks nice. It's very, very close grained. It's probably spruce. And even though it's been out in the sun for the last 10 years with no varnish on it, it hasn't dried out or cracked up at all, so it's probably a nice stick. Well, it is a nice stick. This is the gaff. These are the gaff jaws. I'm going to have to do a repair there. You see it's been glued and wired and so on. That's not much good. And also the mast sits in a tabernacle, so it's pivoting. So this is the tabernacle here. Makes it very easy for one person to lower and raise the mast. Just like that. Nice new wheels on these, new tyres, and they've also got this thing called a bearing buddy, which is a clever little device that stops the water getting into the bearings. So you've got a grease nipple here, put the grease gun on, pump it up, that fills it full of grease, and the spring always pushes the grease back into the bearing, because to launch this boat we're going to have to submerge this trailer, and putting bearings in the water isn't the best thing to do. So overall, this is a far better proposition than the launch in the bushes. Structurally, she's fine, and anyway, I prefer a boat with some sails. Plenty needs doing, right?
Yes.
For sure. It should definitely keep us going for a while, which is
Got
grand.
potential though, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, I'll be fine. Alan and Kathy Dawkins, who own the boat, can't bear to watch it rotting away on their drive anymore. And they're really grateful to have finally found a good home where someone will restore it and sail it. And to tie them on really well, because it's very embarrassing when these bits come up on the road. But before I can start working on the Sharpie, I've still got that Mirror Dinghy to finish. Now the glue's gone off, the next job is to remove all that excess and tidy up the joint. This is quite a blunt scraper, it just stops it digging into the wood all the time. I'm just going to hand sand with a grain to make it look really nice so we don't get any sander marks. We do have to be slightly careful because all this is plywood. We want to make sure we don't sand all the way through because the top layer is only about 1 millimetre thick. We don't want to get carried away. Not too bad, ready for the next impact. We've dusted off, then we give a good wipe down with white spirit. Remove any surface contamination, gets rid of all the dust, gets the wood ready to accept its first coat of paint or varnish. We're going to mix up some 50-50, which is 50% varnish and 50% white spirit. That makes the varnish nice and runny, and then it soaks into the wood, gives a better key. So mix that up. You can lay it on quite thick because it's going to soak into the wood. It's really important, this coat, because it's the foundations for the rest of the varnish work. I'm saying that, you don't have to be too careful, just make sure you get it well on, because most of it's going to soak in and disappear. I'll try not to get too many runs. I've got to get this finished for this weekend because the dinghy belongs to the vet next door and she looks after Tessa. And this is a typical repair, really. I mean, dinghies are always bumping into things, you know, people learning how to sail, getting the hang of things, and it's quite an expected repair. And somebody else will probably do this again in 5 years' time in the same spot. This is Itchenor Sailing Club in Chichester, and I finished the Mirror Dinghy just in time for Junior Fortnight. This is 2 weeks of sailing for the young members of the club, and each day they'll compete against each other on a course like this in various classes of boats. The first race up is the Mirrors, and Gillian, the vet's daughter, is preparing hers for the first race since the accident. What do you think of the repair? Any good?
Excellent.
Excellent. Oh, I think you're very kind. So what have we got to do to get this ready to race?
First we've got to put the jib up.
How do we put the jib up?
First you attach the top of this to this shackle here, and then you put this back in and strip.
Okay.
And you attach this bit of Velcro here. If I pull this up, and then you attach it.
So that's all that holds it on, a bit of Velcro?
Yes.
A mirror dinghy is easily recognisable by its red jib and mainsail, designed to match the Daily Mirror's colours. So what do we do next then?
We stick the rudder on the back.
Okay.
We just put the rudder on. Just hooks on like that. It's on.
Okay. So what's in this big sausage?
Well, that's a spinnaker.
Right.
You put it up when you're on runs, which is when the wind's coming dead from behind you. Just put it up like this. Quite stiff.
Oh, isn't it? Oh yes. Great. Well, I suppose it's time for you to go racing.
Yep.
And if you're going to hit anybody else this time, can you hit them on the other side, not the new bit? All right. Hope you win. Since 1963, when the Mirror Dinghy was launched, over 70,000 have been built. Their success is down to their stability and versatility, making them excellent training boats. And since they have a full suit of sails, including a spinnaker, they make a good basis for learning to sail more advanced boats. These toppers are also being raced today at Itchenor by some of the older kids. These injection moulded plastic hulls are virtually everlasting and require minimal maintenance. There's a big topper racing scene in Britain for both children and adults, and over 100 events are held annually. I used to race in 420s, and many crews intending to move up to an Olympic class train on these. In fact, most Olympic sailors and round-the-world yachtsmen started off in clubs like these. And who knows, perhaps we're looking at a future gold medalist.